Hello friends, it's Dave here from SaveDex, here to bring you a movie review this time because that Uncharted movie is out. Me and Sophie have finally seen it. So before we get into what that film is like, because this has been a big talking point on our channel last year, because Sophie and we streamed the Uncharted games and there was a lot of talk about this upcoming movie and actually created a few in-jokes on our channel. So the first thing I'd like to talk about in this film, I'll probably say right now, overall the film wasn't the big train wreck we were expecting. And I'm not talking about the beginning of Uncharted 2's train wreck. I'm talking about just this disastrous film, but it still wasn't good. Sophie and I are in sort of agreement in what worked with this film and what didn't work, and a lot more didn't work than worked. And it is like the biggest problem for me was the casting, and that's a big talking point we had on our streams last year. Tom Holland is playing Nathan Drake, and he just does not suit the role at all, not one bit. Even as a young Nathan Drake, if it was him a few years ago and he was playing the actual kid version of Nathan Drake you see in the games and you see in a flashback in this film, then that sort of could have worked. But even though this is meant to be like Nathan Drake's first time meeting Sully, their first like adventure together, Nathan Drake is meant to be a grown-up here still, a young grown-up but still grown-up, and Tom Holland just, I know he's in his 20s, but he just doesn't look like he is. He just seems to be a child still, and even to the point where this film begins with like the child version of Nathan Drake. Actually, it begins with that scene from the trailer of him hanging out the plane on the cargo, which is like from the games as well. And then it says, like, you know, however many years earlier, and then he's a child, different actor playing him, obviously. And you see him and Sam, and they do their little adventure together, breaking out of the orphanage that Drake's grown up in. He gets the ring, all that. You see sort of a little backstory of that character. And then it cuts to present day to show, like, Tom Holland on the underground. And it's basically, this is him transitioning to grown up. But the thing is, you're cutting to Tom Holland and he looks no older than the kid that played the child version of Nathan Drake. And honestly, it's so distracting. Not just because, like, Tom Holland, Mark Walberg, they're obviously very recognisable actors, you know, so I'm not seeing Nathan Drake and Sully, I'm seeing Tom Holland and Mark Walberg. And they both seem to be competing as to who can do the deepest voice. Like, this is not Nathan Drake, this is Tom Holland trying to do a deep voice all through it. And it kind of reminded me of when I used to work in the newsagents. We'd have like the cigarettes behind the counter and you had to be 18 to buy them. And sometimes these teenagers would come in and, you know, they wouldn't be old enough to buy them, or they would be, but they didn't have their ID on them or anything. So they'd sort of walk in with a swagger and they'd sort of call me mate, and they'll talk in a voice that's clearly much deeper than their usual voice because they want to try and sound older. That's what Tom Holland's performance in this film reminded me of. And Mark Wahlberg as well, because Mark Wahlberg doesn't have a deep voice, does he? And he certainly doesn't have a Sully voice. And really, this film was sort of like the birth of one of our biggest like running jokes on this channel, and that was how big a fan we are of Tom Hanks. And obviously, we are genuinely big fans of Tom Hanks, but where this started was, for those who don't know, Tom Hanks starred in a film a few years ago called Sully, but that was about the real Sully, the pilot that landed the plane on the Hudson. And when I saw the trailer for that film, I knew nothing about the real story when I saw this trailer. I just saw Tom Hanks with grey hair and a moustache, and people were calling him Sully, and I was like, oh my god, is this the Uncharted movie? Is Tom Hanks playing Sully? And honestly, we sort of say it as a joke, but I genuinely think Tom Hanks would have been a better Sully than Mark Wahlberg. Honestly, and looking at this film, and we'll go into other sort of flaws it has here, but Mark Wahlberg would have been a better Nathan Drake than Tom Holland. If this was Mark Wahlberg as Nathan Drake and Tom Hanks as Sully, man, that would have been much better casting right there. So the story is kind of basic. It's just Sully wants treasure, and that's basically it. And he sort of recruits Nathan Drake to help him get it, and they do the whole thing in the films where like there's a bad guy after the treasure as well, and they sort of have to go through solving clues to find clues to something else to get this artifact that can help them unlock so forth. It's just by the numbers, and that's pretty much all there is to it. There's the underlying thing of Nathan Drake's brother Sam, who's presumed dead, but then you find clues about him as the film goes along. And the one thing though, on the character point of view, was Sully's just meeting Drake for the first time, and then Chloe's in it a bit later as well. There's a lot of double crossing, not just because there's two crosses they use, but you know, there's some betrayal in it. There's like, I don't know who to trust, and I just don't like that they did that. I like that, you know, Nathan Drake and Sully are like best friends. There's complete trust between those two, but here it's like, this is how it started. Like, Sully's just this guy who's using Nathan Drake to get what he wants, and then he's going to just betray him, and I'm like, that's not the Sully that I wanted to see, and that kind of did bother me a lot as well. So when we come to the actual action in this film as well, basically Drake does very little parkour moves in this. There's this scene where he's chasing Chloe, and like there's a few moments where he sort of jumps over a fence and then kicks against the wall as he does it and things like that. But other than that, he doesn't do a whole lot of the parkour and climbing that you see in the games. In fact, Mark Walberg does more than Nathan Drake. There's that scene towards the end. I won't go into too many spoilers here, by the way, where like he's climbing up a pirate ship that's hanging from the helicopters. That's in the trailer. And like Mark Wahlberg does the whole big climb to get into the helicopter. I'm like, shouldn't Nathan Drake be doing things like that? But he doesn't really. And other than that bit where he's hanging out of the plane, like going up the cargo, you know, there's that. But other than that, you don't see a whole lot of it. Like even in the bit in Barcelona, where that's where they're doing the clue solving aspect, which I actually thought, when they go sort of underneath a cathedral or church and they're sort of down in the dungeons and there's sort of these puzzles they need to solve and they're consulting the journal to find clues in there to what solves, I think that part of the game translated well into this film. And during that I was like, oh man, this is just like playing the games, even though I'd rather be solving these puzzles myself, I'll be honest, rather than just seeing people solve it in like 30 seconds. But, you know, it's a movie, you got to accept that. And it's just one thing that was really funny in this whole bit. Even though they did that bit well, the puzzle solving, I like the clues, I like the puzzles, the solutions. I could see that being in the game. There's a bit where Sully's out on the streets and you're going past, you've got all this architecture, all these old buildings, and then there's a Papa John's. And even Sully's on the phone to them. He says, I'm in a Papa John's right now. And then a fight scene happens there. And basically the big thing they needed to do to solve where the treasure was in a Papa John's on a display cabinet. Like, so I just want to say, Sophie sort of wants to join me in on this, but she's not here to record this. But I just want to do a massive apology to everyone here, because half of Papa John's revenue comes from me and Sophie. So we just want to apologise to everyone, as we have pretty much funded this movie being made. I do apologise, guys. When it comes to the villains in this film, the villains were fine, but there was this main villain who was sort of going to be clearly the main villain for it all, and then he had this henchwoman with him as well. And she was like this is usually the case with these. The hench person's sometimes the bigger threat or the more interesting character, which was the case here. But then there's a twist during it, and I'm going to go into spoilers from now on. I hope you've sort of gotten the idea of what I thought of this film from now on. But if you don't want spoilers, now's the time to click off. So about halfway through the film, this henchwoman straight up murders the main villain. Like slits his throat. And that was another thing about this film that I felt held it back a little bit as well, is a lot of times she slits a few throats in this film, and it sort of cuts away every time she does. So, and when you see her slit the throat of this guy, there's like no blood, like, or very little, and it's like, man, this could have done with a bit more brutality, really, because the Uncharted games are quite brutal in their way. So, I mean, obviously wanted to keep the age rating down, that's why they did it, but it was a shame. So this henchwoman becomes like the main villain halfway through, and it really didn't add anything, because it, just for the sake of having a twist, it felt like all these other henchmen, they were like suddenly, okay, you're our leader now, or maybe they were in on that plan, who knows, who cares really. But I feel like this just took away, not that she was a worse villain than the main one, like I said, she was a lot more interesting, a lot more threatening than this main one, so it made sense for her to be the big cheese in the end, but it just removed the villain. Like, you could have had both of them be the villain throughout all of it, or working as a pair, but it just seemed like we're getting rid of one threat here. We could have had two big threats coming into this finale, now we've only got one. And it wasn't even one of the good guys that killed him. Like, okay, fair enough, you do you. And the other thing I wanted to point out as well, that was a big, actually got me going, oh yes, here we go, and then was at one point during the climax, the pirate ship thing, he finds the holster with a gun in it and he puts it on, and then the Uncharted theme plays, and it's like, oh, here we go, he's got the holster, he's got his gun, he proper Nathan Drake now, let's see some action. He doesn't really use the gun, he sort of like gets knocked away before he could shoot anyone, and the music stops, and it's like, oh, that was like, why did you do that if you're not going to have him at least shoot a couple of people before that happens? Actually let him have his badass Nathan Drake moment, because seriously, I might have started to see Nathan Drake a little bit then, or a young Nathan Drake, but honestly, that was the big problem with this film. The casting was the big problem, but the adventure itself was okay. If I went into this not knowing what Uncharted was, or if this was called something else and the characters were called something else, I would have been like, it was okay. It was nothing special, but the action was kind of fun. Like the bit with the pirate ships on the helicopters, that was fun action. But other than that, it was just okay. And yeah, but the fact that you've got these classic video game characters and you've got the wrong people playing them. Although I will say the woman playing Chloe I thought was fine. She was okay. I didn't mind her at all. But Nathan Drake and Sully, they were just wrong for the parts. They should have cast different people. Like I said, even Mark Wahlberg playing Nathan Drake would have been much better than Tom Holland. But then got someone older to play Sully. And even if they want to go the younger route, seriously, you're casting Peter Parker in this and not even doing parkour, but he is experienced at all that. You can see little glimpses of him doing parkour, so he's obviously able to do it. He's obviously meant to be a grown-up because he's doing that stupid fake deep voice, and it's just weird, especially when he opens up a chest towards the beginning with like his postcards from his brother in. And it was kind of dark, and he had a lot of sort of close-ups of his face. Obviously, a sentimental moment. I honestly thought that this was a flashback to him as a child. Like, it was Tom Holland there looking in the box, but I honestly thought that's the child version. They've gone back to the child version of Nathan Drake here looking in the box. Like, I just can't see him as an adult. Which would have been fine if they'd actually gone the teenage Nathan Drake route. But they didn't. He's meant to be an adult here, probably in his 20s, which the actor is, but he doesn't look that old. But it's just, the casting was the biggest problem with this film, wasn't the only problem, which is a shame because Uncharted could make a good film, honestly, but maybe it's best to stick to the games. So basically that's what I thought of the film. I don't know if you've seen the film at all, and let me know what you thought of it if you have seen it or if you're just avoiding it. But I'm kind of hoping people don't see it because I don't want to see a sequel to this. We saw with Sonic that, it could make an entertaining film in the end. and then I'm excited for that sequel. I don't know if I would be excited for a sequel to this one, but I would still go and see it. I suppose I'm part of the problem here. So yeah, again, let me know in the comments what you thought of this film, and see if you want to see me talk about more films in the future. Obviously, this is video game related, that's why I did it, and we're going to do one for Sonic 2 when that comes out. Like I said, I'm excited for that one. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.